Yes, people, good afternoon. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the F1 Grand Prix review. Uh, what would you say? What would you want to call it? It's like a bore fest of a race again. Not really much happened. Well, not really much in terms of like surprise packages or whatnot. But yeah, big up to you both for coming on again. Make sure you guys, whoever's pulling through, like and subscribe. And yeah, King, Augustia, how you guys doing? Both good? Everything okay?
Yeah, not too bad. I think the only regret I could have been is the fact that we should have got more sleep after the stream last night, which
Oh,
was like 10 hours ago.
I went to bed after the stream, bro.
Well, I mean, after our call. Very good call that we had after, right? Talking about politics, religion, the world. But we should have stepped through the race. You shouldn't have
Which is
woken up.
not affiliated with A in sports, by the way.
Oh, 100%. It is completely affiliated, Ekabin. But we should have stepped through the race because bottom line, forgettable race, but unforgettable Max Verstappen performance. That's what it was.
King, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good, all good. Not the most interesting race, but there was a couple outstanding performances during the race, especially for some of the new guys in terms of like the likes of Kimi, Hadjar, coming off his of a very difficult qualifying, and even Oliver Behrman. So a lot of the rookies had good races in Japan. Japan's one of those tricky tracks. It's very hard to pass someone. So it was one of them ones where nothing much was going to happen and it was going to be dictated by qualifying. And that's what really happened. Outside of a team trying something different, which I think the only team that did was probably Ferrari. It didn't work for them, but other teams just kept to the same plan. And I think that didn't allow for any changes when it comes to the top step. But yeah, it's just one of those races. I think it's not indicative of what's going to happen for the rest of the season. I just think it's just one of those races where nothing much is going to happen, and because of the lack of running, because of the fires and everything, it was always going to be a very difficult race for these drivers, especially a lot of them. Their first long runs were in the race, so that's never a good sign when it comes to racing. But yeah, we can talk about that more.
I think there's only one place to start, really. I think it's the race winner, Max Verstappen. Me and Augustia spoke briefly about his qualifying yesterday. The way he snatched first place off of, all the I would say the favorites actually. I'd probably go as far as say McLaren were the favorites going into this weekend again, and Max Verstappen just solidified. He how do you say it? He defied the odds, and he took the race. He took the race, not really by storm, but he edged it, and it wasn't comfortable, but it was a good win for Max at the end of the day. I think it was a race that that Max Verstappen will take home and be like, do you know what? This is the start of something now. Max is going to build on from this because he knows that he's been down in the last two races. He's not had a few successful races in terms of how fast his car has been, in terms of how he's managed his tires, how he's managed his car. I don't think he's done it well especially in this race. I think he's handled himself very, very well. Like obviously there was an incident with him and Lando Norris at the pit exit. I think where he sort of they almost collided, and then he forced Lando off the track. So aside from that, I thought Max Verstappen was just on point. I think there's just no complaints from Max and Red Bull really. I think Red Bull had to look at the second driver more than Max Verstappen. I think Max Verstappen is just taking this team on his back. He's just taken Red Bull on his back for the past 2 years, and pretty much most of his entire tenure with Red Bull. I think he's been pretty much carrying them on their back. So, you know what? Fair play to Max. He handled it well. He won the race. You can't really fault. You can't really fault anything from him. He has to be driver of the day. Like if there's anyone else that's driver of the day, I don't see any reason why he's not driver of the day. Like, you won by a second, but it didn't feel like a second because the way Lando couldn't catch him. Lando couldn't catch him. Like Lando and Oscar were so close, but literally, I think it was like a 2 or 3 second gap between first and third. Like that's how close the top three was today. But it didn't feel like they're close because Max Verstappen just managed. He handled himself well. He did well under pressure because knowing how fast McLaren have been this season, knowing how fast they are, knowing how easy they can capitalize. Max Verstappen has done an incredible job today. So it's hard to look past Max, and it's hard to look past, anything he's done. Obviously, he won the race. So yeah, King, I want to go to you. I haven't really heard from you from yesterday. Obviously, you were on the stream, but I want to know I want to know your thoughts on Max Verstappen, not just today, but yesterday as well, in terms of the qualifying as well. I want to know your whole thoughts. Go on.
I just think he did really well in terms of putting that lap together. I think in terms of the race, Japan is one of those tracks that whoever's in front get the benefit of having clean air. So I think I don't think he needed to have the fastest car in order to win that race. He just needed to control it. And the other issue is with Japan is that unless the car behind is superior in the terms of the speed difference is maybe 0.7 of a second in terms of quicker than the one ahead, it's very difficult to pass. I think the McLarens, anytime they got close, their tires started to heat up. There was a lot of tire dig in terms of the rear tires and the heating of tires, and I think the one thing Max did was he always kept the McLarens at bay. The other problem was the McLarens were too busy fighting each other to catch Max. Sometimes you have to kind of, as Augusti would say, subvert the norm and use one of your races as a guinea pig in order for you to get first. So by them just doing the same thing for both drivers, showing that there isn't really a number one driver in McLaren, and just doing the basic thing, they're showing the same weaknesses that they did last season in regards to if you want to win a world drivers championship, you need to pick your number one driver and pick the guy that you want to succeed, and use the other guy to kind of look as like a pincer movement. Slow down Max by being by what's the word? Being different in regards to keeping one out and maybe for a bit longer than they did, and then taking one off in terms of the pit stops and actually having Max drive in dirty air, because I think the fact that most of the race he was driving in clean air, it allowed for him to control his destiny rather than you forcing him to do something different, especially considering he didn't have any second driver around him. Of course, Yuki had his struggles in qualifying, so I think McLaren just didn't really do anything to even at least give it a go to make. And for me, if you're saying number one driver, I'm saying Lando. They didn't do what was necessary to get Lando the win, in my opinion, because they're too busy trying to baby Oscar, and that's going to be the difference all season, is that Red Bull have a clear number one driver. It's Max and whoever else is driving for Red Bull.
No, go on, finish first.
And I think that's going to be the difference maker in terms of the World Drivers' Championship. I think in constructors, McLaren has that hands down, because Red Bull Max on his own isn't going to do anything, and they've built that car so much around Max that every second driver is going to struggle with that car, and it's shown. Even Yuki had struggles with the car, even though he did better than Liam Lawson. It's going to be very difficult for you to find a second driver that's going to be able to use that car. And I think when Max leaves Red Bull, they're going to have an issue, because they've been too focused on just him rather than the team. So that's an issue in the long term. But for now, great win by Max. And McLaren just didn't do anything to try and change the game. They kind of, were very basic. They just took their second and third and kept it moving.
I will make my point on McLaren in a bit. But Garcia, do you want to continue from King, and you want to make your points?
Yeah, I just want to say, the fact that Max Verstappen, I agree with everything both of you said. I'm just going to piggyback because it's a shame for content. I don't disagree with the word you said. You guys were just spitting facts machine, especially the part about subverting the status quo. I do think that if Max Verstappen was in that McLaren, he would have won all 4 races this season, 3 of the races that we've had: Australia, Beijing, Suzuka, plus the sprint. That McLaren car is the quickest car by far. It's not even close. It's in a league of their own by every single metric, whether it's dry, whether it's mixed. There is no excuse why they shouldn't be 1 and 2 every single race. There is no excuse why that car should not be on pole, and that pole position should not be converted to a prevailing in the race. So I think, again, unforced errors from McLaren, couple mistakes, not optimizing their lap times as well. And as King said, bit risky and reckless strategy. You have to subvert the status quo to just follow Max Verstappen. To again, they tried to dummy Max. First of all, the dummy they pulled off was very early. It was before the pit window. I don't know why you would dummy before the pit window. It makes no sense, especially when tire degradation was not a problem, as we saw with young Kimi, who was able to take the medium tires up until lap 35. And then on top of that, pitting at the same time as Max when clean air is an advantage, even though you have the superior car, as King correctly pointed out, clean air does give you a considerable, significant advantage. So to pit at the same time as Max Verstappen and gamble on Red Bull and Max, who, by the way, push comes to shove when the back is against the wall, they handle the pressure much better than you. Yeah, it's just really, really strange. It makes no sense. You have a 2 versus 1 advantage. Max has no teammate. He hasn't had a teammate for God knows how long. I think it's 2021 when Checo Perez was basically his guinea pig. So to have that 2v1 advantage, not capitalize on it, and be submissive, to me, it's bizarre. It makes no sense. And like I said, last season, Max Verstappen, the reason he won the championship was because when he had the fastest car, he maximized his output, winning 7 of the first 10 races, whereby Red Bull had the fastest car. And when he didn't, he minimized the damage. McLaren aren't even doing that. They aren't even maximizing their output. And when they don't have the fastest car, they're nowhere near the podium places. So I just think, again, I get it how McLaren will be, people in the McLaren pit wall and the pit crew back at the factory will be like, okay, it isn't the end of the world. We were 2 and 3. But I don't think you just want to win the constructors, because you've already won the constructors. You want to win the drivers. And it seems like they're obviously prioritizing Lando for the drivers, because Oscar was clearly the quicker driver today, and they didn't switch them around. So it seems like Lando is the guy. And Lando, again, for the last 3 races, including the sprint, he has failed to make the mark. And we talked about in Melbourne how he supposedly defied his demons, which he did, right? I think there were 3 or 4 race starts in Melbourne, and each and every single time, push comes to shove, he did what he was supposed to do. He held serve, and he maintained his lead from the safety car restart, from the standing start, converted pole to victory. So kudos to Lando there. But ever since Melbourne, it seems like it's all fallen apart. And Oscar's been the better driver. He's been complacent. And this is where you lose the championship. I know it's early days. I know it's very early days, and the lead that McLaren have compared to everyone else is unparalleled. But this is how you lose a championship, because the fact of the matter is, Max Verstappen is only 1 point behind Lando Norris in the Drivers' Championship. And that Red Bull car, sure, it's declining, but I don't think the lead McLaren will have will ever be this large. So just be careful. And on to Max Eckermann, as you pointed out, he's been carrying that Red Bull team on his back. I think he needs a chiropractor soon, because he's literally carrying the entire load of Red Bull, not just on the track, but off the track. Like we've said, this whole dark cloud of Red Bull's politics between Marco, between Horner, between the second driver, between Jos Verstappen is looming large. They lost Adrian Newey. Their car is deteriorating. They have the 3rd or 4th best car at max, and no pun intended. And then this season, like I said, towards the end of last season, since Brazil, I used this phrase already once today. When Max has the fastest car, he maximizes output. And when he doesn't, he minimizes the damage. I don't even think he's minimizing the damage anymore. I just think there is no damage. He is the damage. You can give him the 3rd or 4th fastest car, give him a tractor, give him the Kick Sauber car, give him the Rumble car. I truly and firmly believe that he would take that to pole, and he would probably even win a race with it. So kudos to Max. He's the best driver in the grid at the moment. I don't think the gap between the best and the rest has ever been this big. And just enjoy and embrace what Max Verstappen is doing, because right now his DNA is just there to win. And technically, he is the most complete driver in Formula One history, and I don't even think that's debatable.
I'm going to go into McLaren for a bit, because I think I need to speak about McLaren. I think McLaren screwed themselves over a little bit, in the sense that I think they could have got something even more today. I don't know if you guys recall, but there was a time where Oscar Piastri was 0.4 seconds behind Lando Norris, and the gap went back up to 1. Who was? I'm gonna ask you a question. Just give me one answer. Who do you think was the faster car down the final stretch? Just give me the name. Who do you think
Among
was
the
faster
McLaren drivers,
towards the end? Towards the
Oscar.
end. Thank you.
That's an objective fact.
Thank you. This just proves my point. I think McLaren should have just told Lando, if McLaren have a chance of winning today, you let Oscar challenge Max towards the end. He was clearly the faster car. For me, Oscar was the faster car towards the end. Why didn't you allow him to overtake Lando, right? For him to go and challenge Max to potentially get McLaren the win. It's a team game. I don't know. I agree with King. They're babying Oscar a bit too much here. They're really babying Oscar a bit too much. They're giving Lando all the the leadership. You know what I'm saying? I think Lando should have just told, or not Lando, but McLaren should have just told Lando, let Oscar overtake. He's clear. He looks like he's the faster car. We're gonna let Oscar challenge Max down the final stretch. Because I think Oscar would have. I genuinely think Oscar could have challenged it. It was like how far was it between Oscar and Max and Max and Lando? How far was it? It was 1 second gap, wasn't it? It was 1 point. It was a 1 second gap. Am I correct?
It was in and around DRS range.
Well, then that's what I'm trying to say. Use the pace that Oscar had down the final stretch could have been used to challenge Max Verstappen. That's where I think McLaren really screwed over, because I think McLaren could have really come away with the win today if they had allowed Oscar to go challenge him towards the end. Genuinely, I think Max Verstappen.
I do agree. I think what you should have done with Oscar, as you said, I'd have let him go, but I would have told him this: the moment he got the tire change, I would have told him, forget about preserving your tires, go after Max, make him worry, make him have to be
as well. He was faster than
so I would have told him, forget about your tires. If your tires die, they die. Go for Max. Make him have to use his tires more than he needs to, and then allow for Lando to take the win at the end. Because if you get Oscar to challenge Max, both of them would destroy their tires towards the end of the race, and then it would have allowed for Lando to win that race, because both of them, their tires would have gone down to degraded to the point where Lando would have been quicker than both of them and maybe get past at the end, rather than you just leaving it like that. Because in the end of the day, Oscar's your second driver, so he's the guy that you use to pest their number one driver. So that's what you do. You say, Lando, listen, let Oscar go. Let him just do up his tires, catch Max, maybe even try pass him, get ahead of him, make him have to fight in dirty air, have to squabble, if they're back and forth towards the end of the race. Then Lando could have took the win at the end, because of both of their tires would have been done out. Exactly. That's the strategy you could have done. Because they said it in commentary. They never did it. And this is the problem with McLaren, is that they're too soft sometimes. They're not willing to be sharks. And that's going to stop them from winning the Drivers' Championship, because Red Bull are sharks.
This is where I think McLaren screwed over. The fact that when they told, I'm not sure if they told Oscar, but they kind of told him to back off towards the end. It was like a 1 second gap before the end of the race, and Oscar got close again. I don't know what exactly happened, but where Oscar caught Lando was, I think it was in one of the it was like lap 45, 46 if I'm not mistaken. I think it was around one of those laps that he caught Lando, and I was like, okay, McLaren have a decision to make here. Why don't you just tell Lando to allow Oscar to overtake him? Oscar was clearly the faster car. There's no debate on that. I think he was clearly yes, Lando finished above Oscar, but Oscar was the one for me to challenge Max towards the end. I think this mistake allowed Max Verstappen to win the race. I think if you allowed if you allowed the faster car to finish above Lando, I think it could have ended in a McLaren double podium. Not double podium, double win. Because yes, you're right, King. Maybe Oscar's tires could degrade towards the end, right? But the pace was there, like for McLaren to snatch the
Yeah.
win.
Put
The
put it
pace,
this put it this way. You could have, if you did it the way that I would think you would have done it from the moment they changed to the new tires, you could have got a 1-3 rather than a 2-3. You could have got Lando the win by just forcing Max and forcing Oscar to both, do up their tires by competing. Because
yeah,
that's what happens. If you're racing against each other, if he's like within DRS ranges, he challenges and maybe he's ahead for one lap, he gets back and forth. That can lead to the point where Lando can just chill back, soothe the tires, and then
Yeah.
maybe last 5-6 laps when his tires are at the perfect time, get
And-
past both of them with ease because you're
and
much
guess what?
quicker on the tires.
And guess what? It's Oscar's birthday as well. That would have been such a memorable race win. I think was robbed by his own team. I'll be real.
I don't think he would have won. I think you use him as a guinea pig
No,
to
no,
get Lando the win.
But there was a potential for him to go and challenge Max down the final stretch to potentially get the win, to allow McLaren to get the win. You know what I'm saying?
Guys, I think bottom line, McLaren have to be ruthless and not careless. At the moment, they're
Yeah.
being very careless,
They're
and
too-
they need that ruthless DNA like Max Verstappen or Hamilton has had in the past. Just like the pit lane incident, you have to weigh up your risk reward, your ceiling and floor. Lando pitting at the same time as Max, the ceiling was never going to be to come out ahead of Max. Okay, it was never the reward of that was never going to outweigh the risk. So I don't know why they did it. I don't know why they didn't work together as a team. I don't know why they didn't swap positions, and I don't know why they didn't maximize their pace. And days like this are going to be very costly if another car like a Red Bull can get their act together. And in that second half of the season, Max has a car that's within 2-3 tenths of the McLaren at every circuit. Good luck. You can kiss goodbye to your driver's championship then, McLaren, because now is the time to be ruthless and to make sure to exploit the advantage you have among the rest of the pack.
Facts. Any more thoughts on this? Do you wanna say any more things, and we'll move on to the other segment.
I do have a couple things to say in
Go on,
regards
go
to
on, mate.
Agustia, in terms of him saying that the two things. Max is the biggest gap between him and the other drivers. No, I don't agree with that. If you have a 7 times world champion and a 2 times world champion on the grid, respect their legend, respect who they are. And I think if you put them two in the same car as Max, Max is going to have a problem. And I think the only problem I have with Red Bull, and this is the biggest problem, is that they baby Max. They never give him a guy in his car that can compete with him. His second driver, as you said before, is his guinea pig. It's got to the point where I just say Red Bull second driver. I don't even care who the name is. Alex Albon, Gasly, who else? Sergio Perez, Danny Ricciardo, Yuki Tsunoda. All of these drivers are good to their own right? But they're not race winners like that. They're not world championship material outside of maybe Danny Rick. Sergio Perez was struggling against Ocon before he went to Red Bull. So for me, I think Red Bull has been so Max dominant over the past 5-6 seasons that they're basically destroying their future for the present. And I think that's the biggest reason why a lot of people have left Red Bull, because they realize that they're so reliant on it being a Max-based team that the moment Max says, I want to leave Red Bull, I want to go to Mercedes, I want to go to Ferrari, I want to go to a team with heritage, I don't want to be on Red Bull no more. What happens to Red Bull? And that's the issue when you build a car for a driver rather than the team. Unlike McLaren, unlike Mercedes, unlike Ferrari, they don't do that. There's never been a driver like with that. The whole team is just for that driver. The last time I've seen that was probably maybe Schumacher and Ferrari. That's probably the last time I've seen it. Lewis has never had that, but guess what? He does what it takes to win. He's had teammates like Jensen Button, Fernando Alonso, Rosberg. He's competed against world champions and stuff like that. So I think for Max, as great as he is, he isn't the greatest of all time. He ain't even in my top 5 when it comes to the guys I've seen. And I think he is a great driver, and he is the greatest of his generation. But when you talk about the likes of Alonso, the likes of Hamilton, the likes of Vettel, the likes of Schumacher, it's not a conversation. Because for me, if you look at his history, his first title, Hamilton should have won that. Second title, spent more money. Third title, okay. And this last title is the only title that I will accept because he actually beat Norris in a better car. So that last title, hands up, that's the best titles he's ever won. Because he's done things that I never saw him. But before that, he was a very aggressive driver. They called him Verstappen for a reason. He's learned over the years to be a lot calmer, and I think this is the best version of Max we've seen. But I think he still has a lot more to learn in terms of towards the end of last season, he was still getting back to that nasty crashing mentality. And for me, I need to see him against a teammate of some level close to him before I put him up there. Because unless his teammate is as good as him, it's not like other drivers before that I've seen.
I will say this though, like I think in terms of what you said, Max Verstappen, sure, he's one of the greatest of his generation. I agree with you. The only problem is with Max Verstappen before you got to that point, right? It's either Max is just carrying Red Bull on his back. He's carrying Red Bull on his back, and he just wants to be like, do you know what? I care about myself more than the team, or he cares about the team. It's down to that. It's down to those two now. Does he care about himself more, or does he care about his own team? That's where I agree with you. Because Red Bull, when he does say he wants to leave Red Bull, that's when it will prove to me that he cares about the team more than himself. If he does want to leave Red Bull, if he wants to stay at Red Bull, for me, it's like he cares about himself more. Because surely he could go to a team that wins and dominates. Go to like a Ferrari, go to like a McLaren. You know, one of them two will compete. One of them two will or even a Mercedes. You know, you have the chance to compete with, let's say, how would you say, you compete against the best drivers in a team, in a competent team with a good second driver that can actually help your team get points. Look at Red Bull right now. Yuki Tsunoda's come in, yeah, sure, he finished better than he had a better race than Liam Lawson. But considering the circumstances of Red Bull's sister car, what could you do? How better can they do? Like Liam Lawson's gone to Red Bull's second car for the weekend, right? He finished in a I wouldn't say an improved position, but he finished in a respectable position considering the car. Let's say considering Red Bull's sister car, the pace of their car, right? It's a respectable position. But the Red Bull second car, like Nina Garcia spoke about yesterday, is cursed. The second car is not good enough. The second driver might be fine. It might not be the second driver anymore. Like I think my stance on that kind of changed because Yuki Tsunoda yesterday in the qualifying, right? He managed to finish below Liam Lawson in the qualifying. So I'm starting to think, okay, is that the issue of Red Bull now? Because they could really do better with the second driver. Second driver. We could really do better with the second car. Upgrades on the second car. No, not just upgrades, but changing favoritism. Because it's all towards Max. It's all to the favoritism is all towards Max. It's not all towards the second car. Sorry, I'm gonna say it again. It's not all towards the second car. It's all towards Max Verstappen. The second car is nowhere near the level it should be. It's nowhere near the level that it should be, considering how Checo Perez was competing 2 years ago. You saw Checo Perez. The guy was competing wheel to wheel with Max Verstappen. On the grid, he literally finished second behind Max Verstappen. So the Red Bull second car is a massive issue. Go look at Kimi Antonelli and George Russell. Look at how tight the races are between them two. Look at how close it is. Look at last season, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. This season as well, McLaren's, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Look at how tight they are. But go look at the gap between the Red Bull and Red Bull's first car and the second car. But that's my biggest issue, bro. The Red Bull second car, they don't give a shit about it. It's completely ignorance from I think for me, this Red Bull team, completely ignorance, and I think it's gonna cost Max Verstappen in the future. Definitely gonna cost him in the future, because if he wants to stay at Red Bull, he's gonna need a second competent teammate. Or not teammate, second competent car to race alongside him. You know what I'm saying? To get the points, to get Red Bull across the line. Unless he cares about himself, then he stays at Red Bull. Unless he wants to leave, cares about he wants to do better. Go to a Ferrari, go to a Mercedes, go to a McLaren, something like that. You know, compete with a second competent teammate or a second competent car. Excuse me.
That's what I agree. Can I just respond to King real quick?
Go on. Respond to me.
I completely understand where both of you are coming from. Again, I think the operative phrase of my claim was the gap between the best and the rest right now. The two words, right now, not all time. Like I said yesterday, I don't think anyone is saying Max Verstappen is the GOAT. He's not. Lewis Hamilton, at his peak, you can make the case that he was better. You can also say that Lewis Hamilton, most race wins in Formula One history, most poles in Formula One history. He's almost won 11 championships, 10 more points. He's an 11-time world champion. Dude wins by every single metric. He's the most winningest driver in Formula One history, period. No discussion, no debate, no dialogue here. But I think the reason I say best versus the rest today is look at what Fernando Alonso said last night after qualifying. What did he say? He said only Max could put that car into pole. And I truly believe that. And we can talk about that second Red Bull car being in Max's favor. I completely understand. But that's the trade-off that you're willing to make. At the end of the day, what is the currency in sport, guys? Success. Who won the last 4 drivers' championships? Max Verstappen. He is the best driver. If you give Max a rocket ship, he will produce the greatest outcomes in Formula One history. He's won the most races in a Formula One season. He's not done it once, he's done it twice. He's won the most consecutive races in Formula One history. He owns every record when he has a rocket ship. And when he doesn't have a rocket ship, he elevates that car to heights that it shouldn't be there. I've not seen many drivers do that. Max is a 1 in a billion talent. Only a handful of drivers could do what he's doing in Formula One history. Schumacher, Senna, Hamilton. And you have to accommodate for that. And he's winning the championships. He's winning the prizes. That's what he's doing. He's there to win, and he's succeeding there. So, and I also, at the moment, you talk about Hamilton and Alonso. Yeah, Hamilton, 7/8-time champion. Alonso, 2-time champion. Alonso doesn't have the machinery, so that's why the gap is big between those two. He doesn't have the machinery at all. Hamilton, Ferrari, and Red Bull are very similar. They are very similar at the moment. I would say the Red Bull is a little bit better, but still, you put Max in that Ferrari, do you think he's going to finish 8th? Even in adjustment season right now, Max is in the peak of his form. He's in the peak of his powers. Hamilton is not. That's just a fact. And at the end of the day, push comes to shove, I think every team principal will pick Max Verstappen on this grid over any other driver. And I'm not sure they would say the same at any other point in Formula One history, except maybe Schumacher. When Senna was there, you could make the case for Prost. When Hamilton was there, you could make the case for Seb, or you could make the case for Max. Right now, the gap between the rest is so massive, it's not even comprehensible how big it is. So, King, I understand where you're coming from all time. Of course, Hamilton is better, no doubt about that. But right now, not only is Max doing it in every single situation when Red Bull is declining, when Red Bull is deteriorating, when Red Bull has the best setup, the best system behind him. Also, just as a pure driver, I would argue he has the least flaws because he can do it in every single condition. He's done it in the dry. He's done it in the wet. He can do it in quali with a tractor. He can do it in the rain. He can do it from the back of the grid. He can win by 20 seconds. I mean, what flaws does Max have? The only flaws that we said he had at the beginning of last season were 3 things. Leadership. Could he lead a team? Because he's very immature. Sometimes he's very petulant. He is ultra aggressive, but he did lead that team. When every single person on that team, when his second driver was dysfunctional, when his team principal was embedded in one of the worst scandals in Formula One history, when his dad was abusive towards him, when Helmut Marko was senile, when sponsors were leaving, when the car was imploding, when the number 1 brain in Formula One history, and Adrian Newey, left Red Bull, everything was on Max's shoulders. They were the 3rd fastest car at a certain period of time. And when that period of time took place, if you just look at the period when Red Bull weren't the fastest car, Max would still win the championship. Lewis Hamilton has never faced a scenario like that. Michael Schumacher hasn't faced a scenario like that. Senna hasn't faced a scenario like that. So I think we're really underestimating how influential and important Max Verstappen has been. So, yeah, bottom line, King, I agree. all time, no, he's not the greatest of all time, but that's not my claim. My claim is right now, the gap between him and everyone else is so big. And there is a reason, if you ask every team principal, if you could pick any driver in the grid to represent you today, who would it be? They all would say Max Verstappen, no doubt about it. And there's a reason why he is putting the third or fourth fastest car, not just winning from the back of the grid, but pole positions and race victories.
Fair enough. Anyone want to add to that, or you wanna just?
Yeah, no,
What?
I understand his point, and like, he says right now, but I would even say right now, because the thing about it is, when it comes to machinery, it's not just about the car, it's about the team, it's what you have behind you. So the problems that I have is that when you have the elite drivers are in teams or machinery that isn't going to compete with Max, it's very hard to say the gap is that big. Fernando Alonso is a guy that I think, as shown in the past, if you give him the right machinery, even if it's not the best car, he can compete. He did it with the Ferrari when it wasn't the best car. Lewis Hamilton has showed you he can do that. And the thing for me about Lewis is, for me, when it's been Lewis versus Max, Lewis has dog walked him in terms of competing. When it's one-on-one, similar machinery. That first championship for Max, that was Lewis's. He was 20 seconds up the road before the crash. So, in essence, right now you could say that, but there's a lot of different factors when it comes to Formula One. And I do agree in terms of how great Max is this season and has been. But the other issue is the issue with Red Bull's car is also an issue of his doing, because you're building the car for a driver rather than a team. And I feel like it's getting to the point where it's so Max dominated as a team that last season you finished third in the constructors. This season you can finish third or fourth in the constructors. You don't get money from drivers' championships. It's nice to put it on the mantelpiece, but where do these teams get their money from? Where do they get their winnings from? The constructors. The constructors is the one they all want. Constructors is the one that all the teams need. So in terms of constructors, Red Bull are floundering. They finished third last season. They're third this season. They may even finish fourth or even fifth if they carry on.
King, I'll just okay.
Let me say this first.
Yeah.
Don't forget, 2 years ago, right? Hold that thought for a minute. Yeah, just say what you want to say.
Yeah, take them.
Like, I just want to say this. Yeah, don't forget, 2 years ago they were accused of spending over the cap as well, Red Bull. So that's also another point. And for me, I think now you're looking at Red Bull. Their incompetence is starting to kick in as a team, as a whole. Like, you're starting to see raw decisions that you wouldn't think. Like, they're making weird upgrades. They're making weird, decisions off the circuit. I don't know, but there's just some weird things going on behind the scenes with Red Bull right now. It's hard to comprehend. It's hard to think about what's going on actually, because you're starting to see the downfall of Red Bull's car and the second car, right? As a whole, as a team, they just don't look like they're a cohesive unit. They don't look like they're they're communicating well, because you've seen some of the decisions that Red Bull have, or some of the things that gone on in Red Bull last year as well. Like you heard some of the rumors in the summer. Their team had a disagreement, and some of them split. Like, they split up. A lot of them split up. They let go of so many of their teammates. I think Christian Horner was also one of the people that was accused of something. I don't know what's going on, but there was a lot of things that happened in the offseason with Red Bull as well. So gotta take that into consideration.
Which again, I completely agree with both of you, but which is why, if we're focusing on the claim of the gap between best and the rest, everything you guys said is not relevant to that, right? Because the second car not being balanced is not Max's fault. He doesn't make that decision. That's a team decision. That's a boardroom decision. If they had the balls and they wanted to actually balance it out, that's on them. That's not on Max. I don't think that should be held against Max's legacy. And let me just say, Alex Albon, Sergio Perez, Daniel Ricciardo, Pierre Gasly, Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda, they've had almost half the grid in that car. And I understand this. We described it using the game metaphor, where an F1 car is like sensitivity in a game. The sensitivity is so important to drivers' performance. I completely understand that. But when you've had half the grid, and even just in the last year, the three drivers we've had, Checo, Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda, I get it, one race, the fact that they have averaged to struggle to make it to Q3, while Max is winning races, it is not just because the car is in Max's favor. It's also because Max is able to drag anything to the top. So I think two things can be true. Yes, that car is in Max's favor. It is built for Max's needs. I understand that, but that's also not his fault. And balance is required. I do think you can build a machine that is tailored towards Max because he has proven that when he has the car, he can deliver. So you tailor towards your number one driver. That's what you do. It's like the same thing with Lionel Messi, the same thing with Michael Jordan, the same thing with Shohei Ohtani, right? You build your team around your generational talent. However, there needs to be balance. That second car cannot be solely subservient to Max's needs. It also needs to encompass the requirements of other drivers. So that's what I would say, but I think that also doesn't hit on Max's legacy. If anything, it enhances it because he's just that good of a talent. They would do such a thing, and it's not even harming their results. Maybe it'll harm their future prospects. I get that. But in the short term, that's not a hindrance on Max Verstappen's personal legacy. It only enhances it.
Sorry. Fair enough. You guys want to make any more points? Anyone wants to say anything more? Or you want to?
No, that's it. It was a good. It was a good discussion, but I think Red Bull has never put a good enough driver to compete with Max in that car. That's my biggest issue with him. Compared to other drivers in the past, that's the only thing that I would say is against his legacy. That's when you know how great a driver is, when someone is of a similar level in the same car and you have to actually compete. That's when I want to see, and I think that's going to happen. I think Max will leave Red Bull in a couple seasons, and he'll have to go into if he wants to go to a Ferrari, a Mercedes, or in the McLaren, he's going to have to compete with a top driver, and then that's when we're going to see. So in a couple years, we'll see how great Max really is. At the moment, he is the best driver on the grid. I no doubt about that. But I don't think the gap's that big because I still think there's levels for Max to go to that I need to see. And that comes from competition, and his competition at his current team isn't good enough. So he needs to either suggest them to get better second drivers because Yuki even isn't of his level, or he needs to move to find the competition. And if he believes he is the greatest, compete with the greatest. Go in a team with a Hamilton, go in a team with a Leclerc or a Russell, or with Kimi, or with some of these talented drivers, because at that point, that's when legacy is counted. Who can you beat in the same car? Because in the end of the day, doesn't matter. Different machinery, that's different variables. Same machinery, that's when we see who the real top dog is. And I want to see.
Would you say Schumacher's legacy takes a hit because he never had a teammate of Senna Prost stature? Like, would you say Schumacher's legacy takes a hit?
A little bit with him. That's why I put Hamilton above him, because Hamilton had actual champions in the car next to him and competed at that level. When he first came into the sport, Hamilton, he had Alonso in his car. He also had Jenson Button, who was a world champion. He also had other great drivers in his car with him. Even Rosberg went on to win a world title, and their competition was so fierce that the garages had to split up. That's how fierce his competition with him was. So, and then even the young upstart George Russell coming through as well. So even with Lewis Hamilton, you've seen him compete with drivers. You've seen that happen. So I think that's why I put Lewis above Schumacher. That's why I put some of the older drivers ahead of these guys, because there's also the other factor that the older drivers, your Sennas, your Prosts, they didn't have the electronics. They didn't have the extra gizmos to make it easier to drive. So that puts them up a couple points as well. So for me, Max's career is just starting. He's won his titles. The next level is when it comes to legacy. I'd like him to be in one of the topper teams, because I think Red Bull only has only so much credit in the bank. It isn't a Mercedes, it isn't a Ferrari, it isn't a McLaren in terms of team stature. If he can get to those teams and compete and beat a driver in that team where he's not going to be catered to like he is at Red Bull, then I would put Max top 5 in my top 5. Until
it'd be very
nice to see it.
It'd be very, very nice to see Max Verstappen compete in a competent Ferrari team that makes shit decisions every single week. It'd be nice to see him challenge the Ferrari team, because we all know how good Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton are. But in the future, one day, we'd like to see Max Verstappen compete in a Ferrari. It's everyone's dream to compete for Ferrari. Let's just be real with it. It's everyone's dream to compete for Ferrari. Like
No,
no matter which driver you are,
no.
like it's still like it's still going to be a challenge to compete with that team. Like you're competing with not just yourself, you're competing with other drivers. You're competing with an incompetent like team off the circuit, like teams that make crap decisions, have poor strategies. It'd be very challenging to see how good of a driver Max Verstappen is when he's competing against a team that's not competent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree that Ferrari's not competent. I think they've been really great in the last couple of years.
They're not competent, bro. They're not competent, bro. It's been shown the past decade or so already since Sebastian Vettel was in a Ferrari.
If you're doing decade, but under Verstappen, been a very competent team. I think it's been more driver error.
I'd argue that they're not competent now still, but it's another conversation for another day. But because we don't want to talk about Ferrari today, we have no reason to talk about Ferrari.
I'll just say again, I think King, Ekevin, you both 100% correct. I will say Ferrari is competent. It was since Vasseur has taken over, they have been competent. The two biggest issues, as King correctly pointed out, one, driver error, and second, pace. They just don't have the pace. But usually with strategy, they hit more than they miss. And onto the Max thing real quick. I understand what you mean, but I just think, to me, when you have 6-7 different teammates in your second car, and those teammates, again, they aren't sleazy, they aren't slouchy, they are very decent drivers, they are race winners, they can compete for the championship. Some of them, as you said, Danny Rick, and they are top of the midfield as well. The gap between Max and that second car, I've never seen it that big ever in Formula One, and I think that has to be a plus on his legacy. And like I said, in terms of pure ability and technically, I think he has the least flaws, because in every single condition, he just succeeds. Like, you can put him in every single circumstance on and off the track, he succeeds. And I just don't see any other driver in Formula One history passing with flying colors and dominating as he has, and that's an objective fact. So, yeah.
No, Hamilton did. I think Hamilton has the one thing I think Hamilton over him is I think Hamilton's a much cleaner driver overall. I think Max's biggest issue in his early part of his career was that he was crashing a lot, that he was too overly aggressive, and he was allowed to be overly aggressive by the FIA, and they didn't rein him in early on. And I think that's been an issue with the younger drivers coming through as well, that the FIA has been too lenient on these drivers. And it's led to a loss of life in terms of the recent Formula One and in like the last 10-15 years, because the FIA has been poor, and you've seen it in the last couple races how poor they are, with the fires in Japan, with the previous race. FIA hasn't been up to the tip top shape when it comes to race safety. But yeah, I think Max, outside of that aggressive nature and his kind of early years, yeah, that's probably the only thing I think Lewis has over him. But in terms of driver to driver, I would put Lewis above him. I'd still put Schumacher slightly above him for now, and Senna and maybe a Prost. But I wasn't around for Senna and Prost, so I can't really 100% say that for fact. But
Yeah.
But in terms of Max, he's got levels to go up, I think, in my opinion. We're just seeing
that is terrifying.
That's the thing. So for me, is I need to see more from him over the next couple of years, and I need him to be, and as you said, the leadership role. I need him to demand more from his second teammate and second car, and from the team to bring up that second car as well, because it's not just about drivers' championships; it's about constructors as well. And I think he needs to want both. And once he shows that he can do that, then yeah, he'll be up there. He'll definitely be up there, and he has all the potential in the world to be top 5, maybe top 2 all time. But he's not there for me for just yet, because I have a lot of asterisks when it comes to his titles, and I got to see more of him over the next 5 to 10 years. But he's had a great start. He's had a great start.
Yeah, which is completely fair. And the aggressive point, you're right. Especially early on in his career, he was ultra aggressive. I think last year he really helped debunk those critiques of being able to lead a team, which he successfully led the team. And also being aggressive, he did pick and choose his fights more carefully last year. We'll talk about Las Vegas. I think a younger version of Max, instead of trying to win the championship, he would have tried to fight everyone, especially someone like Hamilton on the track, with the animosity there. Instead, he was like, nope, not my fight. They're quicker than me. They're quicker than me. Let me just do my objective, which is to win the championship. And then with the aggressive thing. But I think that's also, we can have this debate another time. I appreciate everything you said. With the aggressive thing, King, all I would say is I think Schumacher and Senna suffer from that aggressive syndrome even more than
It's been
So
a part of
that's a
many
big
races. It's been a part of many races,
because
but
they've literally been disqualified from championships because of that. So
yeah, and I think Max should have been disqualified as well in the past, but that's not here nor there. That you know, that if the FIA don't do it, they don't do it. But for me,
Exactly.
Lewis is the only one that hasn't. That's why for me he's my GOAT because of
yeah.
his perfect record from the moment he got there. He was competing for championships to now, and the one thing I've liked about him is he's made bold choices when it comes to his career moves. When people saw him go to Mercedes, they didn't expect what he did with Mercedes, and he led that team to dominance to the point where they were shocked and sad to let him go. So that's for me. He is my GOAT at the moment, and it's very hard to say this as a Ferrari fan because I love Schumacher to death. I watched him growing up, so to put someone like Hamilton above him, it's very hard for me to say that as a Ferrari fan. But it's I think Max can beat both of them in the future, but he has to show me, you know.
I mean, yeah, everyone knows if you've been watching the show, even just one show, everyone knows I'm the biggest proponent of Lewis Hamilton. How many glaze sessions of Hamilton have we done last season, right? I've had 10-minute segments just talking about why Hamilton is the GOAT, and I firmly believe that. But again, when it comes to the question of the gap, I would still take Max. But that's circumstance, King. You correctly pointed out that circumstance because look at the machinery that Hamilton and Alonso have. So it's all subjective, but
I personally, for me, I still think Schumacher is the GOAT. But listen, that's my Ferrari sort of bias kicking in. I mean, still, you could seven world championships compared to Lewis's 7 world championships. I understand Lewis doing it in a Mercedes, but that Ferrari team was unmatched. Like that Ferrari car was back in the day was just, you know, you just couldn't get past it. Obviously, there were times where, yes, they've had some few downs, but you know, I'd go as far as to say Schumacher is just by far for me, not by far, but he's still my number one. Look, it is what it is. It's another debate for the future, but I just want to big up Zia as well. I was on his watch along for the Al Nassr versus Al Hilal game on Friday, so make sure you guys do go check his channel out. His links, Zia talks people, so make sure you guys do go show him some love. And yeah, he's still a bit upset from Ronaldo bragging a brace against his team, but hey, listen, we move.
Hey, King, would you include Ronaldo in your squad now? Your Portuguese squad after that brace?
Oh, never.
Hey,
listen, if he was 5 years younger, maybe, but not now. But I would add this. I think it would be a great debate to do like a GOAT tier list for Formula One. Because in terms of like I was thinking about in terms of pure driving, a lot of people in the past say Senna in terms of pure driver, but you know, that's what they've said in terms of when they've looked at some of the greats. You know, some even say Alan Prost, some even look at
Fangio, Jim Clark. I mean,
I think it's just generation to generation, really. It's similar with the football, generation to generation. But yeah, Max is the best out of his class, the same way Lewis is the best out of his class, because Lewis was in the same class as Vettel, but he was better than Vettel, and then Schumacher his class. So when you go by like Max is better than your Georges, your Leclercs, your Gasly's, your Lando Norris's. He's the best of that class, and I think it's gonna be very likely that maybe Kimi will be the best of his class. These up and coming youngsters, and I like the look of Hadja as well.
I hear it, but is there anything else we want to talk about? I mean, we don't really have much to say today. I mean, it's just about Max Verstappen, really. I don't really have much to say about other drivers.
Yeah, I do. I would like to give a shout out to Hadja and Behrman. I think they've had great races and great qualifyings. Especially Hadja, especially because obviously I wasn't on the qualifying review, but the fact that he was dealing with
we didn't even talk about
a seatbelt issue as well, and to go through that pain barrier and still, you know, get to Q3 with that racing balls, beat out Liam Lawson and beat out Yuki Tsunoda to be the second Racing Bull driver out of the four. It's for me, he's shown a level of maturity, especially considering what happened in his first race. Like to crash out, to be emotional, to have the things said about him, for him to kind of come back these next couple races. It's a good look for his future. I think he's going to be a one to look at in terms of a future driver. The post Max era, I think he's going to be a driver that Racing Bull's going to definitely try and put the fuel behind his back, unless they've got someone else in the top. Because I would say this: Red Bull, they have a great academy because they're bringing out talents after talents. So I'll say that. From Seb to Max to what they have now, yeah.
Yeah, they've got good, and they've got 3 cars, right? That team, so Max and 3 cars. But no, I agree. Look, I think the rookies are great, and not just competitively, commercially. Man, Kimi Antonelli is going to be a stud commercially. He's going to rake Mercedes historic revenue, and just keep an eye out for that potential Max and Kimi partnership, which some are suggesting that's Toto's dream partnership.
That actually could happen. That could happen.
I think it will, yeah.
But where would George go?
I don't know. But I think we've known as a fact that obviously Toto rates Kimi very highly. Like, Kimi is the next guy, according to Toto. And obviously we know how much Toto loves Max. And Niki Lauda especially. So
I will say this, though. I think Yuki Tsunoda should still remain the second driver for the Red Bull. I still think that should be the case going forward. Like, Red Bull should still keep, even though you know me, I mentioned about Red Bull's second driver, and I mentioned about Red Bull's incompetence with the second driver this year, the second car this year. I still think I agree with King from what he said earlier on. I think it's time to replace Liam Lawson mid-season with Yuki Tsunoda, like especially for in a few races going forward, because Yuki Tsunoda has more potential for me. And he has more seating. Obviously, right now you can't judge Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson's just come into the F1 scene, but I think if we're gonna give a driver that can take Red Bull's second car to a few good points, I'd probably give it to what's his name? Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda. That's what I would probably give it to.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see Yuki in the next race because Bahrain is the litmus test. That's where they did testing. So that's the race where you're gonna see the real who is the 20 drivers in terms of qualifying. That's gonna just see the real standing rather than these last couple races. I think the 4th races where it's the testing race. They've done enough track time on that track, so they know the conditions and everything like that. So it won't be so hearsay in terms of what tires will be good or not. They'll already know. So Bahrain is going to be a very interesting one. Second of the doubleheader as well. And so next weekend is going to be very interesting to see who comes out on top. It's probably going to be McLaren. I would like to see if Max can maybe split the two or beat them. That'll be very interesting. And where Yuki goes, I think Yuki needs to get into Q3 next race, because if he doesn't, then it's going to be a bad look for Red Bull in terms of what they've done so far, especially replacing a driver after 2 races. They need to have it justified.
Yeah, I completely agree. And what I would say with Yuki is I have complete confidence in him compared to the other reinforcements they've had, because I think he just handles pressure much better because he doesn't focus on it. He's just an explosive guy focused on the track. And even just, we can talk about his qualifying just this entire weekend. Yuki Tsunoda up until Q2 was actually very competitive. I think in Q1 he was a 10th behind Max, if I'm not mistaken. So Yuki Tsunoda, again, when on a track he's more familiar. Yeah. He's also been embedded in the Red Bull system for longer than Liam Lawson. I think he will be a decent number 2. But as Ekevin, you've correctly pointed out in the past, and King as well, as you've been saying all stream, he is not a title-winning number 2. You would need someone like a Charles Leclerc, a Lando Norris, a George Russell, maybe a Carlos Sainz,
or a Checo Perez in year 2 with Red Bull.
I don't know if he's on that tier, but I think he's certainly a great teammate.
I'm talking about when he finished second behind Max in the championship.
But again, that was because they had a literal rocket ship. The same with Mercedes, with Bottas and Schumacher.
That's what I'm trying to say. That you need like a second competent teammate, something of that caliber.
Yeah, exactly. To make the difference.
I also want to big up one more. I think before we wrap up, I'm gonna big up one more driver, Kimi Antonelli, once again, going against the antics, going against the what do you call going against the odds. Well, he's basically proving why he's my rookie of the year, and he's showing why he should be Mercedes' second driver going forward. He is the. If you ask me, right, who at the start of the year, who we said was gonna be rookie of the year, I think one of you said Kimi Antonelli, isn't it? One of you said potentially Kimi Antonelli. So
Oh yeah, that was a shoe, and that was a foregone conclusion, man. We knew Kim was going to be the guy.
He's proving it. And you look at Mercedes' second driver, they're both competent. They both finish around near each other. Ferrari last year finishing near each other. McLaren finishing near each other. Red Bull, the gap between Red Bull and the driver is crazy. So Red Bull needs to look at that as an example. I know Max doesn't want to look at George Russell's team as an example, but I have to use that as an example because you need competence as your second, as your number two. So yeah. Oh well, Charles Leclerc getting fourth back into the podium. Well, not much I could say about Ferrari, I guess, but I think we'll wrap up here. Not much to talk about. We'll end it here. What do you guys have coming up tomorrow? I think we'll do NBA stream with I'll do NBA stream with King. I think the final week of the NBA season, isn't it? Is it the final week of the NBA regular season? 5 games to go.
It is, yeah.
5 games to go, man. It's gonna be one hell of a.
You know what else?
Final
About 5. Huh? You know what else is 5? Lakers in 5.
It's not Lakers in 5, my friend. I think Warriors are winning it in 6.
You've changed your tune, huh?
Not my tune, but I just think the Warriors are looking good now. I can't lie. They're actually looking like a team that can get to the finals. Like I'm starting to like not I don't fear them, but I'm starting to think that they're the ones who can clips OKC to get to the final. But we'll talk about it tomorrow. King. Tomorrow I'll see you at the same time. Is it? Are you free before that? There's no spring break. There's spring break tomorrow, isn't it? You can join before
Easter break. Easter time.
Okay. So after my stream with Josh tomorrow, I'll hop on with you right away on the stream. So yeah.
And I could have no stream if the noisy neighbors win tonight.
Oh well, we'll see in it. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll see what happens. I think we win the game, but we'll see. We'll see.
100%.
But yeah, see you guys. Like, share, subscribe.